Hi, I'm Rob Clarke from Clarke's Custom Flies here on Hooked for Life, and today we're going to tie you the green Highlander hairwing fly. The green Highlander was tied many years ago in the late 1890s, originally as a married wing, and then there's been no less than about 100 variations tied since then. I think the color combinations between the green, the yellow, and the orange have been in classic colors for many years now for salmon flies and steelhead flies, and we're going to get ready to tie the pattern. It's tied usually in sizes 2 to 12 on a standard salmon hook. Married wing patterns and that can be tied in much larger sizes if you like, 2 to 3/0. Enjoy this tie and we'll get started. I have in the vise now a standard salmon fly in size 6. I'm going to start my thread just slightly behind, in front of the return eye I should say, and we're going to do nice soft collective wraps, tight winds all the way back. Trim my tag end. I'm going to bring these wraps right back to the barb of the hook as a measuring point. I'm going to come in with small oval tinsel. With the size 6s and smallers and the size 4s, I like to use small oval tinsel, whereas with the larger flies I'll go to medium or large. Just adjust your size of your oval tinsel to the size of the hook that you're tying on. I've got it to the side. I'm going to come up 3 or 4 wraps, some wide collective wraps to hold the oval out of the way, and begin my tag. The tag on this fly is relatively small. It's only about 4 turns. Back my thread up. Come underneath, holding the oval tinsel in place. Another tight turn to hold it in place, and trim off both my tag ends. I'm going to come forward now with some loose collective wraps to keep the oval tinsel in line with the open part of the return eye and tighten it down. I like to build up the side of the return eye for a smooth surface for when we're doing floss bodies. Though part of this fly will be dubbing on the front portion, it's still something I like to get used to and go through all the way through. The next material I'm going to use is yellow, bright yellow, uni floss. I'm going to come up underneath my thread and bring the floss again to this side. All my materials will be tied towards this side, towards me, so that I can bring them up and build up the side where the return eye is on. I'm going to come up about 4 or 5 turns, a little bit more to about the point of the hook. My soft collective wraps forward again to hold the material up out of the way, and remove my bobbin out of the way and wrap my yellow floss on. Just nice tight turns side by side. Bring back my wide loops, tie up underneath again, 1 turn, 2 turns to keep the floss in nice and tight, and again trim off both my tag ends to the return eye. Collective wraps forward again to keep that material on the side of the hook, and then tighten up my wraps as I go back. This also begins to build part of the body up for you, so your body is not so thin, and it helps build a nice looking body. The next material I'm going to use is golden pheasant crest. I like to pull mine off a little bit longer and larger than most, so that I have a chance to pull it back and set the crest where I'd like it. Get it up on top of the hook. A couple more tight collective wraps. Judge to see where I want it. I'm going to pull now back the pheasant crest so that the tips are just slightly past the turn in the hook. lock it down, collective wraps forward, keeping the material on top, trim off my excess, and lock down the tags. Going to come back again, keeping things nice and smooth. This fly now also has what they call a topping. The topping generally sits, and this is a wood duck or summer duck. In a lot of the books you'll read, it'll say summer duck. This is wood duck. The topping generally sits about quarter to half of the length of the pheasant crest at the back, just so that the white tips are showing. Going to come up, collective wrap on top, take a look to see where it is. I'm going to pull it back just slightly, so I have just a little less covering. Another tight wrap back, forward, keeping the material on top of the hook with the collective wraps. And again, trim my tag ends, forward and back again. And this, just like I said, keeps for a nice smooth body. The next section we're going to put on is a butt. Many classic salmon flies have a butt section, usually a black ostrich. This is a black ostrich herl. The trick to laying in this material is you want the stem of the black ostrich herl, this stem right here, to be facing you. I'm going to set it in on about a 45-degree angle on the side of the hook with 2 or 3 quick turns, tight turns, and then collective turns forward again. All those collective turns that I do forwards each time helps get the bobbin out of the way for when I'm turning longer material, and it also helps gather up your tag end so it doesn't get in the way when you're turning. We're going to do about 4 turns. This material will now turn. As you can see, the stem is facing the eye of the hook, and the fibers automatically want to turn to the back of the hook. That's the proper way to put your butt in. And we generally do about 3 or 4 turns. We'll do a 5th one here. I like a little bit more butt than some do. We're going to bring our collective wraps back. One more turn. Come up underneath the butt. Lock in our piece of ostrich again. And again, trim our tag ends up the side. Now I'm going to lock up these tag ends again, gather them up, and get them up out of the way. Now I'm going to come back in with my small oval tinsel. Going to come up again underneath the thread to my side. 2 turns and lock it in. And now I'm going to come in with, again, the bright yellow uni floss. Same thing, I'm going to come in underneath the thread, come up over top to my side. Couple of turns back to lock it in. And now I'm going to move my thread forward and some nice tight collective wraps to approximately a third, a little bit less, maybe half of the body length with the yellow floss. Trim my tag ends off, and now I'm going to bring my yellow floss up. The body's done in 2 colors and 2 materials. One is the floss, which we're doing right now, the bright yellow, and then we're going to come in with a Highlander green dubbing body. We're going to bring the floss forward, nice tight close wraps together. To the halfway point. I'm going to come back, again up underneath, lock the floss in place. Going to trim my edges off, and now I'm going to clean up, and keeping the floss on my side, I'm going to clean up that floss. Make a nice thread underbody. Just like so. Now you have an opportunity too, because we're using a darker thread, If we thought the floss body was a little too long, we could actually bring thread back and shorten the body, or we can leave it exactly where it is, where we like to have it. The next material that I'm going to use is seal's fur dubbing. On some of these classic Atlantic salmon flies and the older patterns, I prefer to use the seal's fur dubbing. Has a much more natural look and has a greater color. This color is Highlander green. I'm just going to take a small bit of dubbing and wrap it onto the thread. The key to laying on dubbing onto the thread is less is more. Sometimes you can put too much dubbing on, and when you're twisting your fingers, your index and your thumb finger, you're going to twist one way and one way only. Do not twist back and forth, because you're actually putting the dubbing on and taking it off. And I'm just going to twist one way and just judge it. If we need to add a little more dubbing, we will. And we'll get this wrapped forward. Building up right near the body. We're going to put just a little bit more dubbing on here, because I want to bring up the dubbing body a quarter to a third of the length, just up a little bit more, just past the return eye on the hook. Again, we're using portions of the hook to set our distances on our materials, and there we go. We have it locked in. I'm going to bring my thread forward and create that thread base here, and now we're going to add in our ribbing. Ribbing is generally 4 to 5 turns. Judge it for yourself where you like to have it. We're just going to bring the ribbing forward, approximately 2 turns to 3 turns on the yellow, and then finish off with 2 good turns on the dubbing. I've left my oval silver tinsel on the bottom. I come in and lock it up underneath, stretch it forward, and trim off my tag end. We'll clean up this base. And now we have our body set. We can start with our wing material. The first thing we're going to do actually is put a hackle in. It's a yellow hackle, standard rooster hackle in yellow. We want the barbs to come just before the point of the hook, and this will be 2 turns to 3 turns and folded down to create a beard. So I'm going to hold my hackle and judge the length of where I want it, right near the base. I'm going to peel back material to create the stem. Now when I lay on my hackle, I have the shiny side or the concave side facing me. That'll allow the fibers to fold back correctly on their own. I'm going to tie it in on about a 45-degree angle on my side facing me. I'm going to lock that stem in, trim off my excess stem, lock it in completely so it doesn't pull out. And we're going to do approximately 2 to 3 turns, folding the fibers back, and you're going to lay the stem on each turn just in front of itself. Not overlapping the stem, you just want to send it just in front of itself. We'll do one more turn just to thicken it up a little bit. That'll depend on yourself again. Some people like a little bit thinner beard, some like a little bit thicker beard. I like a little bit more color in mine, and that's more of a personal preference. If you wanted your beard to be a little bit thinner, then you just go with the standard 2 to 3 turns. I've locked my tip in, trimmed it off. I'm going to now lock down any loose errant fibers up front and build a bit of a base for my wing. Now I'm just going to take these fibers and literally do as they say, is fold it down. So I've wrapped it in as a collar and then fold it down for a beard. And as you can see, once I've folded it down, you can see that the tips are just slightly in front of the barb. Pinch it good, fold it down good, and that'll hold it down out of the way. Now for the wing portion. There's 3 layers to the wing. There's an underwing and 2 upper wings. The underwing is going to be golden pheasant crest. Tippet, orange tippet underneath, about 6 or 8 strands. Which I'm actually going to pull out and straighten out the tips from the stem. Come in and cut them off. Pulling them out straight from the stem allowed me to keep the black tips lined up in just a small bunch, and you want that wing to extend to just around where the butt section is. Not much longer, but just around the butt section is. It's just going to create just a nice little bit of orange underneath the other layers and underneath the other colors. I'm just going to come in here and even off my tips a bit and lock that wing in, just like so. Now the second portion of the wing is going to be a mixture of yellow and green calf tail. Depending on the variation that you tie, you may want to look at using squirrel fur, rabbit fur. There's multiple different furs that you can use on the hare wing depending on the variation that you're using. I do like the calf tail. It's not too rigid. It's a little bit soft, but it's more rigid than most, and it creates a nice blend. I'm just going to come in and pull off a very small amount of the calf tail yellow and trim it off. Probably cut that down to half. The wing needs to be very sparse. Allow it to be nice and sparse. You don't want too much color on either one of them, and you want the orange tippets to be able to show through the wing as well. Come in with my green calf tail. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the 2 pieces of calf tail and put them together and just kind of roll them in my fingers to mix them up. Some of the patterns that you see, they'll want a distinct line between the orange, the yellow, and the green. I like to mix them up a little bit and show a little more color on both ends. So I'm just mixing them up. I'm going to set the length of my wing will be approximately the length of my golden pheasant crest. The wing's nice and sparse. I'm going to switch it so the green's on top. Once I have my wing set, I'm going to switch hands and trim off and even off my tips. Set my wing down. Now with other furs, if we were using squirrel tail, I would actually move my thread in and out of the fibers of the hair to help lock them in. Calf tail is not so slippery. It's a little softer. It locks in really nice, and you can create a nice smooth head by going forwards and back and lock that fur in nice and tight. So now we have our wing set. We have our head cleaned up a little bit, and the final thing we have to put on now is a jungle cock eyes. This can be something you can add in yourself or not. Most of the patterns in the salmon patterns call for the jungle cock, but it's not 100% necessary. So if you can't afford to have jungle cock, or maybe you have synthetic jungle cock, go ahead and use that, but we'll set those in right now. So I've taken 2 small jungle cock eyes that I've taken off the cape. Depending on the size of your hook, again, will depend on the size of your jungle cock eyes. You don't want them too large so that they look out of proportion, but you want them large enough that they can be seen. I'm going to strip both of them off on the stems. Take all the fluff off the bottom. I'm going to lay one on one side facing me, and I don't let the eye go past the green portion of the dubbing body, so that the yellow still shows and the dubbing green will show very well underneath the jungle cock. Come in with my left hand and capture that stem, lock it in. I'm going to rotate my vise and do the same thing on the other side. Come in, set my length, lock it in. Now I'm just going to come and take a quick look and see how even they are. And with leaving the stems on the end here, I'm able to move the eye up or down or pull it in slightly if I need to tighten it in. And I think we're pretty close to being even. I'm going to come in with my left hand and hold both. Two more tight wraps. I'm going to trim my stems on both sides, lock in my stems, and create a nice, robust black head. I'm going to whip finish. 3 or 4, wherever you're most comfortable with. Cut off my tag end. And now I'm going to come in with some light head cement. Trim off a few of these errant fibers. You can also come in with a lighter if you'd like and take those off and clean that head up. I'm going to come in now with my Loon thin set head cement, water base. This will help penetrate all the way down through the thread and the materials and help lock everything in. Put a nice coating on here. Let it penetrate down through, and when you're finished, if you like, you can come in with your nice black lacquer style head cement and create a nice black clean head. So this is the Green Highlander hair wing, one of many variations of this fly. This is the particular hair wing that I like to fish and that I like to use, and the color combinations are absolutely perfect. I hope you enjoyed seeing this pattern, and I hope you enjoyed tying the fly. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.